The Woman Without a Face, a tale from the edge of the sea. In the farthest northern reach of the coast, where cliffs stabbed into gray oceans and the sky often forgot the color of sunlight, there lay a little town called Darnwick. It was a place pressed tight by wind and water, small enough to disappear from maps but big enough to hold its secrets. Time moved slowly in Darnwick. People did not rush, they endured. The sea shaped the town, and the fog watched over it, curling through cobbled lanes and lapping against worn doors. Generations of fishermen, weavers, and lighthouse keepers lived and died without ever setting foot more than a day's walk from the shore. And then there was the lighthouse, a tall, gaunt thing atop Wormcliff, black against the sky like a finger raised in warning. It had long since fallen into disuse. Ships no longer passed close enough to need its guidance, and the great lamp at its crown had not been lit in nearly 40 years. Yet someone lived there. She was known as Vera Vale, and she had lived in the lighthouse for as long as anyone could remember. Longer, some said, than any single resident in Darnwick. She was always alone. Vera was tall, slim, and silent. She walked with the smooth, deliberate gait of someone who always knew where to place her next step. She wore gray cloaks and thin black gloves, and around her head and face, she always wore a veil dark and gauzy, yet somehow impenetrable. No one had ever seen her face. Not once. Not even by accident. Not the butcher, who claimed she never blinked. Not the priest, who once tried to touch her shoulder and forgot what he had been about to say. Not the librarian, who noted that she borrowed no books with faces on the covers. Not the apothecary, who swore the glass bottles on the shelves dimmed when she entered. She came into town only when the weather was worst wind screaming, rain falling sideways, sea foam spilling over the harbor walls. She would appear without warning, walking calmly through the tempest, her veil unmoving, her boots never wet. And always, people made way for her not out of fear, but out of something deeper, reverence, or maybe awe. She never stayed long. She would collect what she needed: herbs, parchment, tallow, bread, and then vanish again into the storm, her gray figure swallowed by mist. The stories, of course, were many. Some said she had no face, just smooth skin like porcelain. Others claimed she wore a mirror beneath her veil, so anyone who looked saw only themselves. Children whispered that she was a spirit, cursed to walk the land until someone dared to name her. And old folk, the ones who remembered the lighthouse in its working days, spoke only in hushed tones. "That's no ordinary woman," they would mutter. "That's something older than the sea." But no one truly knew. No one ever asked. Because despite everything, Vera Vale had never caused harm. If anything, she brought peace. Flowers bloomed where her feet had passed. Stray animals followed her back up the cliff and returned days later, healthier and unafraid. Once, during a year of failed harvest, she left bundles of food on every doorstep in town wrapped in white linen, tied with seagrass. No one ever saw her deliver them. She was a riddle the town learned to live with, an unanswered question they kept in their hearts like a prayer. Until the storm. It came one November night, without warning. No shifting winds, no warning tides. Just a black sky that split open with lightning and a roar that shook the hills. The sea rose like a living thing, battering the rocks with a rage that belonged to no natural world. And then impossibly the lighthouse beacon lit up. A golden light, brighter than fire, cut through the darkness. It swept across the waves, slow and searching, as though seeking something lost. The town gathered outside, staring up at the cliff. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, and then they climbed. Not in fear, not in panic, but pulled by something ancient, something holy. The path up Wormcliff was steep and slick, yet not a single soul slipped. Dozens came, old, young, lame, afraid. Something in them knew they had to go. At the top, the great iron door to the lighthouse stood open for the first time in decades. Inside, the spiral stairs wound upward like a spine of bone. And at the very top, in the lantern chamber, surrounded by the warm glow of the beacon, stood Vera Vale. No cloak, no veil, only her. And still, no one could remember her face. They saw it, yes, clearly. She stood before them, real and solid. But when they blinked, the image slipped away. When they tried to hold it in their minds, it dissolved like smoke. Some said she was beautiful beyond comprehension. Others said her features changed while you watched, reflecting things you had forgotten about yourself. What they remembered was how she made them feel. Seen. Not just looked at. Seen. Down to their core. All their shame, all their beauty, all their possibility. She turned slowly, meeting each gaze, and with every glance, something inside the viewer shifted. A weight they hadn't known they carried dropped from their shoulders. Secrets long buried broke apart and scattered like ash. The town's drunkard wept and whispered his daughter's name. A boy gripped his mother's hand and told her he forgave her. The mayor took off his hat and remembered his father's voice. One by one, they stood in her light. And one by one, they understood. Then, without a word, Vera stepped forward into the heart of the lens and vanished. Not into flame, not into wind, just gone. The light dimmed, the beacon slowed, the room fell silent, and the town, slowly, quietly, made its way back down the cliff. The lighthouse has never opened since. Its door remains shut. No one has tried to force it. No one dares. But sometimes when the fog is thickest and the tide is angry, you can see the light. Just for a moment. Some still climb. Not many. Only those who are truly lost. They return quieter. Gentler. Sometimes they never speak of what they saw. Sometimes they do, but never the same story twice. And always, always, they forget her face. Subscribe my channel and comment below your ideas about story.